Yeah, but
For example,
I tried to have one simple as well as I could.
Price Park.
You didn't scrape.
That's all I wanted. Because. Yeah. Can't survive without city water and sewer.
I missed the last meeting, so it's still fresh in my mind.
Why?
That's the last one I looked to.
I don't know how gas station. I don't know what they call it. That's why they wanted to be in the city. But they're not.
Right, but no, whatever I've done currently or in the past or in the future, that was your everything.
It's easy.
Everybody has their.
Juliana wants to be here in person.
She did.
We may need to.
It's tonight.
How long is the drive?
I don't think they're-
I would say, like first
they
meeting,
come
or
here,
twice.
all their children.
It's not, she's not on.
Let's see.
That, if you look
Got a few still signing.
What was your? Were you a teacher? Yeah. They always think the teacher makes it.
It's shot.
Yes.
Okay, her area is.
Man,
You're definitely on point.
here's the. Attending.
We were 100%. And I'm
The legal organization.
It really isn't. I've been.
this past summer, when I asked Scott, hi, it was. A lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's it's there.
I'm sure, you know, that the front grass is not an option. I mean,
That's something you
we're about the ability of working hybrids.
Let me check my email.
Like 2 months. And it was on a federal holiday, but you can-
So you want to move over there?
How did we?
Okay with you? Yeah.
Coming over.
I don't see anything.
I think it should be. I was just so late, I was just paying attention on it, like diverse buyers.
Checking my-
Things one of my. Basic.
Oh. That's all the way around.
It's a long drive. Think I-
I've done that. Do like this. County. Yeah.
Were you currently working or?
Go. Over the north. And I think I just jump on you for that. I think some positions that were good at it, virtual life, some are better. Like what I was doing.
Okay.
Fair, it's all like.
What you need to do.
But this.
I'll be in this right there.
Or like, and I don't know what the other end of it. Yeah, so.
That's about
Yeah. Not myself.
right.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Right.
There you go.
We're in the street.
Now where we are.
Cyber.
All right, we're ready to roll. I think we're ready. Are we ready?
We are.
All right. Yes, sir. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. In the absence of our regular chairperson. And so it is time for us to kind of get going with this meeting. Thank you for attending, those of you who are present in person. And I'm not sure how many people we have virtually online, but I guess we begin the meeting with calling the roll. Is that right? Yes, sir. So Chantel will do that. Okay,
Ready.
I'll recognize Chantel for the calling of the roll.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will call the jurisdiction name. Please let me know if you are present. Aberdeen,
Will Mulaney present.
thank you. Andrew,
Bob Smith, present.
thank you. Apex,
Brett Gant, present.
thank you. Archer Lodge, Vincent,
Present, Jerry Midland.
thank you. Broadway,
Thomas Beal, Broadway, present.
thank you. Cameron,
Yes.
Present.
Thank you and welcome as well. Scarborough,
She won't be here.
Carthage, Cary, Chapel Hill, Chatham County, Clayton, City of Durham, Durham County, Fuquay Varina, Garner,
Ken Martin, present.
thank you. Hillsborough, Holly Springs,
Holly Springs, Tim Forrest, present.
thank you. Johnson County, Kenley, Nightdale, Lee County,
Bill Carver present.
thank you. Micro, Moore County, Morrisville, Orange County, Pine Level.
Bedford, Orange County alternate.
Okay, I
Here.
have you. Thank you. Pine Level, Pinehurst,
Jeff Morgan, present for Pinehurst.
thank you. Pittsburgh,
Pamela Baldwin, present.
thank you. Princeton,
Don Raines present.
thank you. Raleigh, Robbins, Roseville, Sanford,
Rebecca Salmon, Sanford, present.
thank you. Selma, Siler City,
City Bill Hague is present.
thank you. Smithfield, Southern Pines, Bass, Wake County,
Susan Evans here.
thank you. Wake Forest, Wendell, Wilson's Mills,
David McGowan, Wilson's Mills, present.
thank you, and Zebulon.
I'm sorry, this is Amy Whitley from Town of Selma. I just joined. I
Thank you.
apologize.
Oh, no worries. I have you down. Thank you. Is there anyone else I may have missed? Okay, thank you. And we do have a quorum.
Okay, very good. All right. We've declared a quorum for the meeting, so we will proceed. I think it's a matter of process and procedure. I need to read the following. This meeting is being live streamed on the TJ Cog website. And so those of you who are virtual should identify yourselves by name each time that you speak during the meeting in order to comply with the virtual meeting laws. All votes will be conducted by roll call to comply with laws around virtual meetings, and Ms. Haskins, I'm sorry, will call roll each time a vote is needed. And so she has just done that. Well, hello there. So I think at this point in time, my duties might conclude for now. Just turn move right over to our current chair there.
Nice job.
Defer to you at this point in time and assume my other position. Okay. Yeah.
My apologies.
Would you like to sit beside me? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
So, did you review the agenda, right?
No, that was.
Okay, yes.
changes. I'm going to give an update on our office location during my director's report, but no other changes, ma'am.
And recognition presentation, introduction of new COG staff.
Jenny is
Hi,
on.
everyone. I will say it's hard to hear Chair Freeman, so if you guys could maybe move the mic or something like that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
We will do it.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jenny Halsey, the Assistant Executive Director at Triangle J. I also do HR for the organization, and over the past several months, we've had a lot of new hires that we're excited to introduce just a few of them to you tonight. You'll see that we had 4 down to be introduced tonight, but Annie Lee is actually out sick today. So you'll meet her at the next meeting. But I would like to throw it over to Lindsay Whitson, our Community and Economic Development Director, to introduce her new staff, Mark.
Hi, thanks, Jenny. As she said, I'm Lindsay Whitson, the Community and Economic Development Director, and we have Mark Becker. The O is silent. I always have to tell myself. He joined our staff about 3 months ago now at this point. We were fortunate enough through the Economic Development Administration to receive a grant, and he'll go a bit more into that detail, but he's really supporting economic development along the Haw River Trail in Chatham County and Alamance County, which is a pretty cool opportunity. And we are very thankful to have him here. So I'll hand it over to you, Mark.
Hey, this is Mark Becker. Good to see everyone. So like she said, I was hired through the EDA grant, and we can go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit more about myself. So prior history, so I used to be a teacher, a physical education teacher, did that for about 8 years. Most of it was in Johnston County, so one of our COG members. Then I went and got my master's in sustainable management from University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. And then I landed this job. So next slide, we'll get to so obviously helping to provide technical assistance and play a capacity building role through the Haw River region. And like Lindsay said, a lot of that is focused in Alamance and Chatham County since they were a part of the grant process. And it's about building economy and mainly focused around the Haw River Trail, which, to me kind of plays into my sustainability background. It's about creating an economy that's going to last and serve those communities and those regions and be based on these natural assets and natural resources that aren't going anywhere and can't, be shipped somewhere else or shut down. So that's a lot of what I'm working on. And then a little bit just about myself in general. Next slide, please. In my spare time, I like to fish, enjoy sports, big ECU football fan. I like to cook. One of those things is, like most men, when I entered my 30s, I started having an urge to smoke meats. So now I do that a lot. So I like to try to do ribs and pork butts and all that stuff. And then I'm big on spending time with my family in my spare time. So that's some of my hobbies. Next slide. Is there? Oh, not next slide. My bad. But that's me. And so I've really enjoyed working here for 3 or 4 months. Lindsay's been a huge help to me, getting me kind of used to everything and getting me settled in my role. And I look forward to doing more work with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, I'm going to hand it over to Elena Keegan, our Member Engagement Manager, for her to introduce our new Communications Coordinator.
Bear with me, I'm turning on video so folks can see me while I'm talking. Maybe it's sort of a meta experience. I'm really excited to introduce Beth Davis to everyone this evening. This is a new position for the COG, so we're really excited to add some communication and marketing capacity, which we've been direly needing. And we were just discussing potentially steal that from a peer cog in the state, which they're not happy about, but we're always happy to have someone who really knows how to advocate for cog work. So really excited to have Beth join us and turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Davis, and as Elena said, I'm the new communications coordinator. I believe the next slide is, about my experience. So I was with the Carter Regional Council of Governments for 2 years, and I was their regional engagement specialist, and it's a pretty similar position to this one. And I worked with all of the programs at Carter, so it gave me a really good exposure to all the different programs that the COG had at Carter, which is a little bit different than TJ COG, but so I went to Carter not really knowing much about what a COG was or what a COG did, so I did learn quite a bit while I was there. Prior to that, I worked with WKRX, which is Radio Roxborough. That's where I live. I was a sales and marketing rep there for about 3 years. So I got a lot of marketing experience doing that. And I also did live broadcasts and wrote commercials and things like that. So now I'm on the other side of that. And I actually like this side much better. And then prior to my radio experience, I worked with Cooperative Extension. Many of you guys may have worked with Cooperative Extension, and partnering. I was the 4-H extension agent in Stanley County, and then I moved to Alamance County, and then I moved to Person County. So I actually grew up in the 4-H program. My mom was a 4-H agent, so it's kind of always been in my blood. So that's my background. So what I'll be working on here with TJ COG, a lot of internal communications with our staff here, all of our TJ COG marketing communications efforts. I've been the past couple weeks been taking over the week ahead. So you may have seen a few changes with that. Those are just some little tweaks that I've done. I'm also working with the Clean Water Education Program, whatever they need help with. And then also Solarize the Triangle is another piece of what I do. And then there's various other things with economic development and transportation that I'll be working on. So a little bit of everything.
Welcome.
Oh, in my spare time, I kind of wanted to say, what is spare time? I'm a mom, so but I do enjoy working out. I watch my son play baseball a lot, and I also like to watch college and MLB as well. I enjoy going to musicals, and I love to read, and I read audiobooks, and some of my friends tell me that doesn't really count, but I love audiobooks. It's the only way I get to read. My favorite kind of vacation would be going to the mountains or anywhere that I don't have to do laundry, dishes, cook, or make any decisions. And then also I'm a big Harry Potter and Star Wars fan, so I enjoy watching or reading anything about those. So just a little about me.
Thank you, Beth. We're so happy to finally have you here. And last, we have Hope Talley that I'm going to hand it over to Lee to introduce as our new CFO.
Thank you, Jenny. Good evening, everybody. I'm really pleased to introduce Hope Talley as our new Chief Finance Officer, our new CFO. Hope is familiar with local government. She comes to us from Chatham County. We didn't steal her. She took a little bit of a break from Chatham County, where she served as their Chief Finance Officer. And we started, she started off working with us on some of our ARPA funding part-time, and she did such a great job, and we really enjoyed working with her. That the CFO position came about, and she was just a natural fit. So we're just really, really pleased to have her. As a reminder, this position is a cooperative position with the Mid-Carolina Regional Council, where Hope will be Mid-Carolina's CFO as well. And we'll begin merging and working together on our finance services as two regional councils. And I think that is really going to allow us to increase our internal capacity for ourselves, but also for our members. So Hope, we're thrilled to have you. So if you would introduce yourself, that'd be wonderful.
Hi, everyone. As Lee said, I'm Hope Talley. And if Chantel will move the slides on, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm an NC State grad. I actually started out in RTP straight out of school, but then about a year later moved to the public sector and found out that is really where I love to be, and I love to serve. So I've got about 20 years of experience in local government finance, most recently, as Lee said, as the CFO for Chatham County. And next slide. So I'm really going to be focusing to begin with on working with TJ Cog staff to really tighten up our internal framework so that we can have, consistent high-level support to our internal programs, and also serve as a resource for members, like Lee said, and also be working on that merger and tying all that together, and just really to help serve our members and look out for growth that's coming our way. In my spare time, kind of like Beth said, I'm not quite sure what that is, but we have 2 teenagers, and I spend most of my extra time with them, and they both have a passion for music and theater. Put a few shots of all of them down there on the bottom of the page there. And the rest of that time is spent, my husband and I are very passionate about pouring into our youth, and we have an outreach center in our community, and they all very much keep me young at heart and laughing and having a lot of fun. So.
Right. That's great. Thank you, Hope. And just as an example, with the new CFO, Hope and I have talked a lot that the position is obviously internally focused, but also part of the vision, and something I've really enjoyed talking to Hope about is the opportunity to help our local governments with finance issues. And she's really passionate about that. And in fact, just today, Brett, she was helping with the CFO recruitment for the town of Apex. She's serving on that panel to help them, and walked into the office and she said, man, that was a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying helping Apex. So I just wanted to thank you, Hope, for doing that. And since Brett's here, I wanted to let him know about that.
Yeah, I'm super excited to work with everybody and have had a great time getting to know everybody at the COG, some great staff, and I'm just excited to be here.
Thanks. All right, Jenny, anything else?
That's all. I'll just say that all 3 of these employees have truly hit the ground running and have had a steep learning curve in some cases, and we just really appreciate that.
Great. Yeah. Madam Chair.
Yes, and moving forward to the recognition of Triangle J Area Agencies on Aging. 2022 NATO Allison Walbrook Impact Award. I hope I said that right.
Close enough. And I think Janisha's going to introduce this.
Oh, yes, I'll introduce.
Okay.
So yes, one, I want to give recognition to Blake Matthews, who was on our agent team, and he came on to help with our COVID vaccination outreach program. And because of his great efforts, Triangle J Area Agency on Aging was a recipient of the 2022 NATO Alice Ann Walbrook Impact Award. So we want to thank Blake, and I believe Blake has a little bit of information to share with you all about that, his work that he did to help us achieve that award.
Yes, thank you, Janisha. And I am unsure, I pronounce it Allison Walbrook, so we'll just go with that from here on. But thank you everyone for having me today. Like Janisha said, my name is Blake Matthews, and so I served as the COVID-19 outreach coordinator with the Triangle J Area Agency on Aging from September of 2021 to September of 2022. And so every year, the National Association of Development Organizations, or NATO, recognizes members who, by the way of this Allison Walbrook Impact Award, who really demonstrate valuable and effective approaches to our regional economic and community development. And so this year, our COVID-19 Outreach and Education Initiative was recognized for its efforts in advancing this regional economic development and also improving the quality of life for those that we serve. And then just a little background, quick on the initiative. in my time as the outreach coordinator, COVID outreach coordinator, I assumed the responsibility to head this initiative for our organization. And here I really planned and administered outreach and educational activities to further the knowledge, the access, and as well as the acceptance of COVID-19 vaccines for our region's older adults. And the primary focus for me and my work was initially geared to adults age 60 and older. But as my efforts really expanded, I began to include family caregivers of our older adults, as well as individuals of any age who are unable to leave their home for a vaccination, and as also those who live in areas that have limited resources or are under vaccinated populations. And so during this initiative, I really worked closely with tons of partners. I think I made over 50 different organizational, non-for-profit, advisory groups and local government partners to help me in my work. And together we were able to do things like conduct educational webinars and hand out information to our senior centers, as well as to our congregations, and provide resources at community health events, and ultimately just help increase the health literacy surrounding COVID-19 and vaccinations, as well as increase the access to resources on this topic. And so additionally, we also really strive to locate and help individuals who may have been homebound, to work with them to schedule a COVID-19 vaccination of their choice and provide it in the comfort of their own home. And so that was a big part of my work. I certainly believe, this work was impactful, and it might be a little selfish to say that, but I don't know. We reached over 400,000 individuals and families through this initiative. And we also helped to vaccinate over 1,650 people, almost all of whom were elderly and or homebound. And lastly, I just want to say I'm very grateful for this recognition for my work. And I really appreciate you guys' time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving forward to our business, member support and strategy program. I'm going to turn to Alana Kiki.
There. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be able to join you to provide an update from the member support and strategy focus area. This is probably, for some of you who have been coming to board meetings, something we do regularly. Each of our focus areas provides some sort of an update on the work that they're doing. So I'm excited to talk to you about one specific area of assistance that we've been providing. And I'll note it's kind of timely that we all kept talking about stealing other employees as we're talking about improving our local public workforce. We kept making that joke, and I was thinking, maybe not the right time to be doing it. But it is a topic that is coming up quite a lot in all of our local government conversations with all of our members, and we're very much aware that that is sort of a concern. So we are not alone in being the one that is stealing. So just as a reminder, these are our strategic focus areas. We have 6 focus areas for the organization. These were formally sort of reaffirmed and adopted in the strategic plan that the board approved earlier this year. And so we're going to be talking specifically about the member support and strategy focus area, but we have worked across all 6 of these. Just some highlight. So I'm going to talk about one specific program that we have under this focus area, but just as a sort of reiteration of the goals of the member support and strategy area, we have 4 sort of key goals. So the first one is to offer a variety of assistance. So as you all know, we have a range of communities in our region that range in the size of your organizations, the size of your populations, the type of community you serve. So it's really important for us that our sort of operational assistance that we offer to you can recognize that some of you will need things different than others. So that's a really important goal for this effort. The second is to increase capacity on hard to fill or duplicative assistance areas. And so this is specific to making sure that if folks are having trouble sort of providing something on their own, or if it's not necessarily sustainable to do it individually, we can provide some assistance on behalf of you. Third is to serve as an external source of guidance. And I note that this is at the state and federal levels especially, and this has been something that's been a huge focus of our work in the past few years, especially with all of the federal funds coming down. We're not going to directly talk about our work with American Rescue Plan and others, but it is tangentially related to what I'm going to discuss tonight. And it's been a really great way for us to be responding to something that maybe was unpredicted or unexpected, and that all of you then had to sort of respond to. So doing that on behalf of all of you. And then the fourth is always trying to be cost effective and locally driven. So we really pride ourselves on being a partner rather than sort of just a service provider to you. So one of the areas of work that we have been spending a good amount of our time on over the past year is recruitment, retention, and workforce stability. And this probably doesn't shock any of you. I would imagine your own boards are having these conversations. This has emerged as sort of a critical challenge for all of our local governments. I can guarantee you that even in the other focus areas, it's coming up as a source of conversation because it's impacting service delivery in other areas outside of just the general HR management conversation. So this has been coming up in a lot of our conversations, and it started rising to the level where a lot of our city county managers were mentioning it very frequently. And so we kind of acknowledged that this was a huge challenge that we needed to respond to. So in early 2022, we convened a working group of managers and HR directors from the region. It was sort of a self-joined opportunity, but we made sure that there was strong representation. So all 7 counties had folks at the table, and that included municipalities from those counties. And they met several times to talk through what they saw as their biggest challenges related to recruitment and retention, things that they might be doing that were either working or not working, and why that might be the case, and some sort of observations about ways we could conduct some collaborative efforts as a region. After those working groups, we did some research. So we tried to see what's happening at the national scale around recruitment, retention, and workforce stability. This is obviously a national issue. It's not specific to our region, especially in the public sector. And so we tried to gather some information about what is working and what is not working. And then finally, based on sort of the feedback from all the managers and HR directors that this is a really important issue, we dedicated a portion of our own ARPA funding that we received to staff some response around this issue. So tangentially related to ARPA, but as a reminder, the General Assembly provided ARPA funding to each Council of Governments earlier, their last legislative season. And so we received a set amount of funding to help with your own administration of ARPA funds and also sort of COVID recovery and response. And so we see this as a fairly large challenge to be responding and recovering effectively. And so some of our ARPA funding is specifically covering staff time to work on this. This is not inclusive of everything that we heard in those listening sessions, but I wanted to share some direct quotes from the notes that we took, things that probably don't surprise you before I share the trends that we saw and are working on. So I'm not going to read them all, but I'll just give you a moment to look them over. Things like local government needs to tell their story better. People want choices post-COVID, they want flexibility. How do we respond to the fact that entry-level positions are becoming considered to be short-term roles? How do we reduce stealing? How do we increase recruitment of people of color? And how do we get graduate students to choose government over the nonprofit track? So that came up a lot. There's a feeling that we have a lot of universities in our area and community colleges and other sort of educational partners. And a lot of the programs that could traditionally feed into government are often feeding into nonprofit instead. And so what are we missing in terms of getting that workforce? So we identified 4 key trends from those work sessions, and they're kind of the basis of what we've been working on. I do want to have some space for everyone to share if you see something that's missing, but the 4 that we've identified are mental health and well-being for the workforce, improved equity and pay classification, better data on employee trends and need, and coordinated and improved marketing of public sector work. So I'm going to quickly pause there just because we're curious to hear if there's something that you expected to be on this list that may not be, or if any of these are surprising to anyone, either on the call or in the room.
I would think the mental health and well-being. I mean, you already have it there, but I'm just curious as to what the response has been so far in your conversation.
Around that work. So I will talk a little bit more in depth about that, but it is one that we're putting a lot of attention to. I know Lee feels very strongly about that one as well. And we found some really interesting, just in our research stages before we even kind of chose that as a focus area. There's just a really strong connection between mental health and burnout, which is something that we're seeing a lot in the front lines of our own workforce. And so we saw it as a pretty big topic to focus on.
And you may be covering it somewhere else, but for financial and operational stability of local governments.
Yeah. A great one.
In Lee County, we just finished a pretty comprehensive effort to collect data about the employees' opinions about things. And the one that came out at the top was longevity, recognition of longevity, which of course complements the idea of keeping somebody around for more than 2 years. And then the other thing is that we noticed that we do a 5-year pay review every 5 years, but our last one was 3 years ago. Well, if you think about what happened in the last 3 years, we determined that actually we're going to go ahead and do one of those reviews in January, or at least the first quarter of next year. Because we're finding ourselves in direct competition, not only with our neighbors, but also people outside the state, right? So that's an interesting challenge. I'm curious about this thing about attracting graduates to government rather than the public sector, rather than the private sector, and how one does that. And that's probably where one of the biggest disparities is the pay.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. I'm sure that none of those things are a surprise to you, but we're living it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll say the pay and classification one I actually didn't mention is another sort of trend we noticed was occurring, and I think led to us putting time towards this. Everyone is doing pay and classification studies all the time right now. And we've been doing, so we work with PTRC, which is the COG in the Piedmont Triad region, to help folks do those pay and class studies. And the amount of requests that we're getting has just exponentially increased, and the rate that we're being asked for that. So that was another sort of, highlight of how often folks are feeling like they're already out of.
8.7% inflation is having an impact.
Yeah, it definitely is. Great. So I'm going to talk about some work in progress around those trends and some things that we expect to see ahead. I will mention, we are definitely in the beginning stages of a lot of these things, so there's much more to come, and we would love involvement as we go through them. We had those working groups in early 2022, so we couldn't have done that much if it's only been that amount of time. But I'm excited to talk about what we have done. So on the topic of mental health, we are very much aware that that is a huge sort of concern for the workforce, especially for frontline, but honestly for everyone. And so we have a couple of things that are already underway and some things that are ahead. So the first one, I hope everyone's coming to the regional summit. We have our 6th annual summit next week on November 2nd. And the topic is mental health. So we saw that as something that was really important to highlight. The day is going to be entirely focused on a combination, I guess, of mental health and well-being within your organizations and how you do that in the public sector. And so we have a number of speakers. The keynote, as we always do, is a workshop. And so the workshop is going to be skills for supervisor level and up to sort of incorporate strategies for emotionally healthy workplaces. So things like some of them are kind of, we were working with the workshop leader recently, and they're definitely interesting. They're things like setting boundaries and how you do that in the workplace, and emotional intelligence and how you develop that as a skill set to combat sort of emotions that might be coming at you that you can't necessarily control from another individual, things like that. So that's going to be the keynote workshop at the summit. We strongly encourage everyone to be there.
Registration is open through Friday.
So if you haven't registered, you can do it now. And then the second thing that we have underway is a survey that we have partnered with RTI to conduct, and they're actually going to be announcing some initial data from that survey at the summit. So they did a survey of all of our management level staff and up, so basically department heads and city county managers, to get an understanding of well-being and barriers to well-being in our organizations right now. So they're going to be talking about trends. We've seen some initial information. It's very interesting. So they're going to be talking through that and also giving some context compared to other sectors, because RTI has been pulled in for other sectors to do similar sorts of research. So they are going to be sharing that, and we'll also have more opportunities to engage with that survey in a bit. I don't know, Lee, if you want to add anything on that survey while we're there.
No, I think just sort of a preview, some of the things that we've already been talking about have come across pretty clearly in the survey results. And, they align with some of the trends we had been sort of noticing. So it's going to be, the results are very interesting, and I think will help really undergird quite a bit of the work that we're thinking about doing. And it'll give us a good opportunity to set some context around some important discussions, both at the summit, but then beyond the summit, as we engage in other things that we're planning on doing. But you got to be there to hear the results.
We're really plugging the summit.
That's right.
It was a chair report too.
And then we have a couple other things, because we really do recognize mental health is a big sort of piece of this. These are a couple things. The first two on the possibilities ahead are two things that we've either seen as sort of best practices or heard from our HR and managers. One of these is sort of a mental health toolkit for local governments. And this is specific to evaluating your health insurance benefits and employee benefits that you're providing. So this has come up with a number of managers who would love to see sort of a checklist of best practices and ways that they can evaluate what their insurance provider is offering them, and if they're really competitive with the rest of the market. So that is something that we're looking into developing. The second is the kind of reevaluation of employee assistance programs. So there's some interesting data in the survey talking about EAP programs. A lot of folks offer EAP programs, but we're sort of trying to think through how we might be able to get employees to actually utilize them better. And I know there's some examples in our region. I know Wake County has talked about how they've rebranded their EAP program. They have their own sort of model that they use, and that has had an uptick in use after they've sort of renamed it and rethought through how they were presenting it to employees. So kind of documenting some of those best practices and some other opportunities. And then the last one, Leo, I might turn it back over to you on this one, the support group, if you have anything you'd like to add on that one.
Yeah, and I think there was a question about the mental health and well-being sort of focus, and for me and for the organization, the reason why it's one of those fours, it's a combination of what I'm seeing and others are seeing sort of in the literature from our peer organizations and from our professional organizations, that there's just a lot more conversation around mental health. I think part of that's a good thing, because I think through COVID, some of the stigma around mental health and feeling okay to talk about it has gone away. But I also think that, just very plainly, that with COVID and you all, I think, have seen this firsthand, and with some of the degradation in sort of our civil discourse, that our public employees are really on the front line of some bad behavior. I don't know any other way to put it. And how do we provide support systems to help them deal with that? And I think a lot of the ways that we've done it traditionally is in a reactive sort of way, right? We have health insurance, we have EAP if you are struggling with mental health. But being proactive about it is not something that I think the public sector has really talked about a lot or really done. So the idea is, there's some good examples, one in the Chicago area, where managers have been gathering for over 20 years with a psychiatrist and actually having a support group for each other and the ability to talk about what they're struggling with and personal or professional. And so we've had some conversations and contemplating trying to stand up some of those types of groups that would be here at the COG. So it's very neutral and for those types of leadership positions. So that's the thing. We probably won't be advertising this much, but we do want to try to offer it. So that's another area that we're thinking about.
If I could just
Yes, ma'am.
add in on if there's a way to tie some of this to membership engagement, because I think we lose formerly elected or retired folks in this, and that could be one of the support groups that we tap into and they keep engaged, like they stay engaged with what we have going on.
Yeah, it's a great idea. That's a great idea. Thank you for that.
Are you writing that down?
I'm writing it down. You're welcome.
I don't have a pen. This is all the mental health slides. So I just want to make sure, is there anything else on mental health that we may not be thinking about or that we should include before we?
Is there a way to address the historical stigma of leaders having to raise their hand and say, I'm in trouble, I'm having some of these issues? It has a tendency to undermine the confidence of the people in the trenches. Has that been a point of discussion?
We haven't, you're right on it. Not a lot of conversation yet, but it's at the top of my mind. And as I've talked to some folks, yes, that's been something that's been discussed quite a bit. And I think one way is us normalizing the discussion around this table at the summit as leaders that, we're all from time to time are going to struggle with something, and it's okay to discuss it. One example, and I'm not advocating for this, but it's interesting to have a conversation. The city and county managers in Texas have actually included a provision in their membership. So obviously managers abide by ethical rules, but they've added a provision in their membership that managers that are part of the Texas City County Managers Association need to have a conversation or training on mental health once a year, and they have to certify that. And what moved them to that was one of their colleagues who was an assistant manager in Texas that committed suicide. And it drove them to have that hard conversation. And now it's a requirement for membership that you're taught to a counselor or that you've done some sort of training and that you've certified it.
Just once a year?
Just once a year. So it took a little effort to do that, but at least that's a start. Yeah.
Do we have, I'm going to use the word competent, mental health physicians, doctors, professionals? Do we have enough to really serve all communities at some minimal level? Is that something we need to work on?
I think that's a yes. I think it's something to have a conversation about. I had a really interesting conversation with a colleague of mine that is now the chief of staff at the UNC Health System. And he and I were talking about that and how to support this effort. So yes, those are all, I think, very valid thoughts and conversations.
Yeah, I think Delegate Carter has her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Delegate
Oh,
Carter.
thank you so much. I'm interested in workplace policies, HR policies, and how they might support better mental health for, our city and county workforces. For example, paid leave to take care of children when you have a baby, that sort of thing, but also just paid leave if you have aging parents that need care or a sick child. And I mean, I can really see how an employee who's struggling to get the job done and also to take care of personal items and issues, something like this might help relieve stress. And just wondered, are there sort of best practices, best family-friendly policies that cities and counties should consider that maybe we're not?
Yeah, that's a great point. I know that we can share, I think we have some very initial sort of research on some like organizations or sort of certifications you can have to be family friendly. It's not specific to the public sector workforce. And so that's where I think we found a gap that we would probably need to develop the resource ourselves, but there are some resources that we can definitely share out in the general sense, some family friendly policy.
Elena, I'm kind of intrigued by, so that list you showed, I think, was not just unique to government workers. And I was kind of intrigued by whether we should try to tackle the challenges unique to government workers versus challenges that everybody has, and maybe what's more effective in terms of that ratio.
Yeah, that's a great point. I will say there's some, so I keep plugging this survey that I can't tell you all the information about.
Come to the summit.
But I will say there is a little bit more in there that gets to the unique challenges of the public sector workforce. So we are, and I think there are things that might come up in some of the other work that we're trying to do. I think part of it, the biggest challenge, I think, or one of the biggest challenges, the answer isn't money, because it can't be money, giving people more money. We're not the private sector, right? And not that that would solve things like mental health or something, but it's just, that's something that's very unique to our space. But it is a great point. So I don't have a firm answer for you on that. I think we're just trying to find ways. So I think I'll talk about it a little bit. The marketing and communicate, like different communication of the value of our work is one area that I think will be very specific to the public sector. So we are very much aware that there's a huge gap in like how we talk about our roles, how we market them. We keep referencing some, and I won't get into specific examples of jobs that we see posted, and we'll bring it up to the HR directors and say, is this the right title? You're not going to get anyone with this title. And it's just, we kind of don't glamorize ourselves in the way that we should, right? And so I think that's where we lose folks to the nonprofit sector and the private sector. But just in general, there's not any sort of, seems almost like an unforgiving career in many different ways. So that will be probably the most specific to the public sector.
I think that's really good that you're doing that. I think that it is so important in this field of public service. One other thing that I think is unique to government positions is that is different from a lot of business positions is that you get scathing emails. And if in my business life, I would never receive an email where somebody's speaking to me the way that citizens speak to staff members and to elected bodies. And so I think that we need to, think about ways that we can teach our staff members to cope with that type of negativity that comes with the job.
Yeah.
And, I think you're on the right track with helping to make people feel like, hey, I'm working, I'm being paid less because I'm working for this government, but the work is so meaningful and I'm making a difference. And I think that when people see that there's significance attached to their job and that surpasses some of the negativity that they see on the job, went out.
Absolutely. Yeah, the scathing emails are also unique, I think.
This might be an oversimplification of what you're saying, Jennifer, but I have found as mayor, when I receive emails that are directed to me, or sometimes they will have council members attached with them, but it's helpful to me to refer those to the town manager or others just to share the information and to seek some feedback as to how's a good way to respond. Sometimes I have what I think is a good way. I try to not always not to respond in kind, as Jennifer said. So, but I think maybe, and I don't know how our staff do this. I assume there's some collaboration. If citizens giving them a hard time, that they don't have to try to resolve it on their own, but let's gear it up and talk about it a little bit and decide what's the best way to do this. So I guess I'd just call it staff collaboration.
Yeah, it probably is. And I know I've heard some interesting examples of, I think the larger the community, this might be a little bit more difficult, but there's also sort of an expectation from the top that they'll be the ones that are holding the citizens a little bit more accountable than having their frontline workers be sort of stuck in the midst of the anger as much. I've heard some interesting stories of like a planning director who won't give you your official development approval until you've apologized if you've said a really, now that's a very specific example, but it gets to something about like, these are people that you're talking to that are just trying to do their job, and this is our community. And so that's probably not really like replicable everywhere, but it's an interesting sort of sentiment. So
I fully subscribe, so.
is there a hand?
I think Mayor Smith.
Mayor Smith, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. As we talk, it has occurred to me, I've been active in the church for many, many years. And I think there's an analogy between the church and municipal government in the sense that the church for years said, here, we have these 4 walls, you come here and be like us and, come here at a certain time and do certain specified things. To the extent government is still hanging on to that, it seems to be we've missed a lot of things in this current society.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I know we got to move on, so we'll move on, but we would love to hear more thoughts. We'll have many more times for talking. So these other items I'll just quickly talk about. They're all more in, I think they're mostly in ideation stages at this point. So the next one is strengthen employee data. And we have a couple of things underway. One, I won't talk too in depth about because it's not really launched yet, but we're very much talking about some sort of coordination around pay and classification studies, whether that's folks doing joint pay and classification studies or some other sort of coordination because everyone's asking for the same data, paying separately. The second one is sort of collaborative purchasing and technology. So we have been, we've been working specifically with a platform called NeoGov, just because they happen to be very flexible and willing to work with us on it. They're not the only platform out there to talk about some shared models that local governments could join together and use. So whether that's either a discounted rate for everyone to have access to it, a shared candidate database, real-time salary data, they have a bunch of sort of functionalities in there that we're trying to push them on. And then the other piece that would be involved in that technology is this sort of regional job board that's kind of agnostic of local government and is specifically encouraging local government careers and sort of providing education and positive, communications around them. And you can then from that site access all of the individual websites and job opportunities. So that's still very much, and they're like working with product because we've asked them for something they've never been asked for before, but we're continuing to talk about that. Pipeline development. So that's another piece, getting back to the stealing. So we're acknowledging that we can help everyone improve their individual workplaces, but if we don't improve the pipeline, then we're still going to steal from each other. So we're in the process of developing relationships with all of our universities, community colleges, HBCUs specifically, which is something that's been really specifically asked for by the local governments to increase our connection with the HBCUs. To look for potentials for pipeline programs. So that can be internships, it could be apprenticeships, other sort of programs that might get folks into the hard to fill jobs like building inspectors and utility workers and things that wouldn't necessarily be coming out of a master's program. We're aware that we've gotten a lot of feedback that those are they take time to do those types of programs. And so a lot of our communities are really not doing any sort of comprehensive internship or pipeline programs. And so we're looking at some opportunities to do that as a region, right? So we'd be sort of the main resource that folks who are interested in working in the public sector could come to one place, submit their profile, and then as folks need interns, we'd help sort of train them and get them out into the field in all of our different communities. And so we're kind of calling this that pipeline program, which is the second piece of what are we doing. And then the second coming soon is we're going to be having in early 2023. We don't have a date, but we'll send out details as soon as we do. A mixer. So in addition to us creating this program, we also just have heard that folks feel like they don't have the time or relationships with a lot of our education partners. And so this will be a chance for everyone to come together and make those connections. And we'll also have some speakers on pipeline programs. So we're looking for specific public sector pipeline programs that don't involve what the private sector does, is just build a building, but that trains people how to do exactly what they need them to do, right? We don't have the funding for that. So we don't want to hear from them. We want to hear from other public sector partners. And then I think this is the last, we've had a lot of great discussion. So I'm happy to take, if anyone has any other thoughts. This was more just to get conversation going, but I don't know that we needed it. But I would say after this meeting, if you have examples, this is, I think the most important takeaway is if you've seen examples of pipeline programs for the public sector that you would like to learn more about and hear about, please let me or Jenny or Lee know, and we can reach out to them about coming to that mixer in early 2023. So we'd really like to learn from some other peers. And other ways to stay involved, attend the regional summit, another plug for you. And if you have networks with education partners, please let us know. We can send you some information to share with them to kind of get them involved in the pipeline efforts that we have underway.
Do you know whether or not Central Carolina Community College is sending attendees to this?
So we have reached out to every community college. So I don't know if we've heard directly from them, but we are definitely going to try and get them there. So we'll be in touch if we have folks that are not being responsive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're moving ahead to the consent agenda.
Sorry about that.
And just noting the budget amendment, ESRF 2019, Durham County, and ESRF 2019 in Harnett County. Uniform guidance policy waiver request, Board of Delegates and Executive Committee 2023 meeting schedule, and the minutes for the August 24th, 2022 Board of Delegates meeting. Any items? Just making sure that no one wanted to remove any items to be considered later. And if not, I'm going to ask for a motion. Don Raines. And a second.
A second.
Mayor Mastrom. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Chantel to roll call vote.
Thank you. Just a reminder, one vote per jurisdiction, the jurisdiction name, and this is a vote for the consent agenda. Aberdeen.
Wilma Laney votes aye.
Anger.
Bob Smith, aye.
Apex.
Brett Gant, aye.
Archer Lodge. Benson.
Aye. Jerry Medlin.
Broadway.
Thomas Veal, aye.
Cameron.
David Cyberling, aye.
Scarborough. Carthage. Carey.
Aye.
Chapel Hill. Chatham County. Clayton. City of Durham.
Deidre Freeman, aye.
Durham County.
Heidi Carter, aye.
Fuquay Varina. Garner.
Ken Marshman, aye.
Hillsborough. Holly Springs.
Holly Springs, aye.
Johnson County.
Butch Lauder, aye.
Henley. Nightdale. Lee County.
Bill Carter, aye.
Micro. Moore County. Mooresville. Orange County.
Jamesetta Bedford, aye.
Pine Level. Pinehurst,
Pinehurst, Jeff Morgan, aye.
Pittsburgh,
Baldwin, aye.
Princeton,
Don Rams, aye.
Raleigh, Robbins, Roseville,
Michelle Matley, Town of Roseville, aye.
Sanford,
Rebecca Salmon, Sanford, aye.
Selma,
Amy Whitley, aye.
Siler City,
Bill Haggis, aye.
Smithfield, Southern Pines, Bass, Wake County,
Susan Evans, aye.
Wake Forest, Wendell, Wilson's Mills,
David McAllen, aye.
Zebulon. Is there anyone that I may have missed? Thank you. And we do have a vote, Chair.
Was unanimous. And that's great. Moving on to the executive director report, Lee.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I've got two items I want to talk to you about. One will take a little bit longer than the other, but today we actually hosted a really great alternative fuel technology showcase outside. We had several alternative fuel vehicles to showcase to anybody that wanted to come by. This actually coincided with the first in-person meeting that our Triangle Clean Cities Coalition has had in a couple years. And they launched a strategic planning effort and had a really good meeting. The Triangle Clean Cities is one of those programs that we have been very proud to house and administer for many years, close to 20 years. And so I think we see Mayor Raines there getting ready to take off in one of the Mustangs. Yep. So he took a ride, and the city of Charlotte was very nice in bringing one of their Ford F-150 Lightnings down, and there were several other.
One.
Just, yeah, one. Yeah, they didn't bring multiple, they just brought one, but just a really good event. So thank you to our staff that did a lot of planning for that. The other thing I want to give you a quick update on is where we are on office space, and for our executive committee and for our officers, this might be a little bit of a repeat. But I think it's important to update the board and just to let you know sort of where we are really quickly. And the reason why it's important to talk to you about this is that the space we're in right now, we're approaching 20 years actually being in this space. Our last renewal occurred in 2013 and is due to expire in July of 2023. On the screen, you see the layout of our space right now. We're in about 9,500 square feet. We're paying about $24.57 a square foot, which for office space in this market's pretty good. And we've had a good relationship with our landlord, which is Tri Properties, and we've been having discussions with them off and on for a couple years now about the possibility of renewing the lease, but we've also explored some other options because we think that's, obviously important and appropriate as we make a decision that's this important. It's not advancing. Okay, so we are right now looking at three options. The first option is to stay here at Emperor Boulevard, and actually for the delegates and that came in, and when you leave, if you notice, The suite right next to us is vacant right now and actually gutted. We've had very good conversations with Tri Properties about expanding into that space, which would be about 15,000 square feet. We'll talk about that in a second. The other option is some conversations we've had with Go Triangle to possibly move into their building, which they own just up the road from us on Emperor Boulevard. Option 3 is some conversations we have had with the Research Triangle Park Foundation about maybe moving into their hub area, which is the area they are developing right now. That will be multi-use retail, commercial, office, hotel, really transformational for the RTP and for this area. So we've also talked to our staff about what they like and maybe what they don't like about the space right now. We're trying to be mindful of that because they use it, every day, and they have a really good sense of what works well. And I think with COVID, I'll be the first to admit, before COVID, we were thinking very much, individual offices and workspaces for every employee. We have a possibility of getting up to maybe about 60 employees next year with the potential addition of a new agency that we'll talk about another day. But to do 60 offices and 15,000 square feet and have room for meeting rooms and everything else wouldn't be able to happen. So we've been thinking more about collaborative space, thinking about an office that would serve as the Triangle J offices, but knowing that our employees may be here only a day a week, 2 days a week, because they're meeting with other people or they're able to work remotely. We're really envisioning this space to be more like a local government co-working space that would be available to obviously our staff, but would really embrace our vision of being that convening point in the center of the region in terms of our local governments. So if any of you needed to come work or needed to have a meeting or the local governments, our space would be available as it is now and would be more flexible and would have more options. And so that's sort of what we're thinking about. So more collaboration areas, better rooms for communicating and for gathering together, more private offices for those virtual meetings. Doing a virtual meeting in like a cube or a workstation sometimes doesn't work really well. Bigger conference rooms with really great technology. I think we've gotten by, but we've known we need to really upgrade our technology with our partners at Cary, and they've been very open to that. A less harsh environment. If you notice right now, most of the light is taken by the private offices that line all the windows. So some of the concepts remove all those offices to let more natural light in. And then dedicated space really isn't necessary if there's more collaborative areas. But we've also thought about, while we may not have a dedicated office for everybody, with some reimagining, we can have flexible space and maybe dedicated collaborative space for our focus area teams. So while there may not be a private office for somebody, there may be a great team room for the aging group to sort of customize and make their own and come together and use when they want to work. And the same for transportation and our other teams. So in October, we talked a little bit to the executive committee about this, and they asked us to give a counteroffer to Go Triangle and asked us to investigate the RTP hub space a little bit more. So let me give you an update on where we are right now. So this is, if you're looking at the building right now, on the left-hand side, that side entrance, Tri Properties, and they've basically said yes to everything we've asked for. This, where this is outlined, this is the possibility for a new private dedicated entrance to Triangle J, so that we can have our own entrance to control, like for night meetings or other types of meetings that would give us a little more control over our space. The other thing that if you, I don't know if I listed it on the employee comments, but we heard a lot about is, it would be great to actually have some outdoor area to take a break, have a meeting, to work on something. And Tri Properties has again come back and given us a conceptual design about that. If you're looking at this, the road sort of going, I would almost say like north and south, that's not the real direction, right? But sort of vertically, that's Emperor Boulevard, and you all come in here to the building. That's actually where my office is, right there on the corner. This is a built-out outdoor space with power, tables, seating, potential whiteboard opportunities. We could have meetings in this space. And they've actually given us an additional allowance to build the space, or they proposed it. So again, they've responded very positively. This is just another rendering of what it might look like. And so in summary, the terms right now for this space is $27 a square foot for 10 years or $26.50 for 5 years. A tenant improvement allowance or an upfit allowance, a renovation budget of $60 a square foot. We started out at 40. And I mean, they have really come to the table with an upfit allowance for us for 10 years. And then in addition, an additional $30,000 for the outdoor pavilion, and we could up that to 50,000 by taking a 20,000 from our upfit if we wanted to. A 2.5% increase per year, which is very comparable, is actually less than what we're doing now. I think we're at 2.75 right now. So they've dropped the escalator and a direct entrance potentially. 15,000 square feet, both of these suites, and they'd be connected and renovated. So this is the Go Triangle space. If you're familiar with the Go Triangle building and you're looking at it, it's the top floor, second floor on the right. It says 18,000, but I think it's actually closer to 15, 16,000. There are a number of offices that are already built into the space. And for those on the Zoom, it's the green. And then there's a lot of just open space here. Go Triangle's been very good to work with. You know, we would almost look at this more like a partnership than a tenant landlord relationship, I think. And they've proposed $23 a square foot for 5 years, which is less than what we would have here. They've actually dropped that $1. They have actually now included some tenant improvement allowance for us. It was $0. Now they're offering $15 a square foot, which is very much appreciated. We had asked for consideration of an outdoor pavilion. They didn't address that. 2.5% increase. If the executive committee remembers, we had asked for ownership equity consideration. That was not addressed. And they are also willing to co-brand the facility. So probably at our expense, but that's still, which is understandable, but that's good. And I'll talk a little bit more about my observations generally in a second. Lastly is the RTP hub. So this is Highway 54, Davis Drive, right off of I-40. There are 3 opportunities for us there. Up in the top left corner, that's where the existing Frontier and the box yard are. That's a possibility. In the new construction area, there's a possibility that I don't think is feasible financially. But I just wanted to mention it. It's in the Horseshoe building, which I'll talk about in a second. And then the third is the existing 4,000 Park Drive building, which is right at the corner of Davis and I-40. There's actually a direct access off of I-40 East into this existing building. This is that 4,000 Park Drive. I don't know what floor they're talking about right now, but this is the basic layout. It's a little choppy, just to be very honest. We are not sure. We haven't gotten really, it's not our TP's fault. We've just started talking to them. So we should be getting something from them any day now. In their marketing material, they say tenant improvement is not included, which for me would be a deal breaker. We can't fund a renovation. but their rental rates are on par with what we are looking at the other facilities. I'll be interested to get in this space to see if we could make it work. I am, like I said, just a little concerned about how it's chopped up to meet our needs. The other possibility is 700 building at RTP Frontier. If you're at the box yard and you look across the parking lot, that's the building. The top floor is available for sublease right now. So again, we're not sure how any tenant improvements would work. This is not an accurate floor plan right now, but it is 20,000 square feet. It's the way they have it built right now. A lot more open space up in here, a lot more meeting rooms in the middle. What's missing from this right now is some of the larger meeting rooms that we would need. So that would be a critical conversation about whether they'd be able to, how they would deal with that in terms of funding. So again, we're trying to go look at this space. Hopefully in the next week or so, we'll do that. I just show this to show us, this is the horseshoe. This is right in the middle of all the action, the restaurants, the brewery, the hotels right across the street. Mid-40s rental rate. So I don't think we can afford that one, but it's going to be nice space. But if we could win the lottery or something, maybe we could go there. But we've already politely declined that space. But I just wanted to tell you about it since it was offered to us. So the basic terms right now, a lot of the terms are unknown. The lease rates for 4,000 Park and 700 Frontier, 700 Frontier are comparable. Horseshoe, I just talked about. The big unknown is that upfit allowance, and we're waiting on RTP for some tour dates and more details. Some summary thoughts, and happy to answer questions, or if you have any reactions. Tri Properties has met every request we've made. They've given us a very generous renovation budget. And really are working with us to try to implement our vision. So I've been very pleased and very comfortable if we were to stay here. I think we've got a great opportunity. The spaces at RTP are intriguing, but the key, I think, is going to be the renovation budgets. And if they can't offer us any tenant improvements, I just don't know financially how we'd be able to do anything. Again, Go Triangle is a great partner. Their offer is competitive, but I do think right now where they are is going to limit our ability to renovate, how we'd envision. There's no solution right now for the outdoor location. The location in terms of walkability isn't quite as good as what we've got here right now. And the parking is not as good. There are some parking spaces right in front of the building, but most of the parking spaces are in the back. And it's quite a bit more of a walk. But I think there's still a viable option. So what I'd like to do is, we're on a bit of a tight timeline because Tri Properties, with this space being vacant, they were intending to submit for permits to begin renovating for speccing this suite, but they're holding for our decision. And so I think if we need to make, and we also need to make a decision just to start planning what we're going to do. So what I plan to do, we need to make a decision by the 1st of December, I think, to be ready. So what I'd like to do, I think we can get the rest of the information. I plan to come back to the board at your November meeting and give you an update. And then I would ask the board of delegates at that time to give us any feedback you have, but then to authorize the officers to make the final decision. And then obviously authorize me to sign a lease based on the officers' sign off in agreement on that final option. I don't think any other options will come up. These are the three. But we've got good options. I mean, it's nice to be wanted. and to have some competitive offers. I feel really good about the space. So happy to answer any questions that any of you have, or if you have any feedback, would love to hear it. Thank you for the time.
I just have one, and it's. Yeah. Is there somebody else?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Then Michelle. Yeah.
And this is pretty common, but this is not going to be a short-term move. You're looking for another 20 years.
It'll be either 5 or 10 years.
Okay, with renewal options.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and then we haven't moved a lot. I've been in the same house for over 40 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But be able to make the newer space, whatever it is, compatible with what you're trying to do in the easiest process. Least amount of money and the least confusion.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
think those are things, obviously, there's one choice that seems to be better.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. We're moving and coordinating all that is a huge undertaking, and staying here may offer a little simpler sort of
Something that will fit your needs with the least amount of.
possibly. Yes, sir. We'll see what their demo and renovation plan is, but there's a possibility. What I'd love, if we were to stay here, it'd be wonderful to be able to have them renovate that, us move while they're renovating this, and then sort of fill the space. But I don't know if, understanding they may want to mobilize and do it all at once. But even if that happens, the spaces in the front are one's available right now and the other one's going to become available in February. So we may just have to go down the hallway at worst. So well taken. Yes, Ms. Medley.
So, is there no chance of buying? Is this agency not allowed to purchase something?
We could buy, and it's just the way that COGS fluctuate in numbers, it makes it really hard sometimes to buy. And then obviously when you buy, you have to maintain. And many of the COGS that have bought something, it's great for the first 5 or 10 years. And then they're like, now we got to do the roof. And so it just provides the most flexibility for an organization like ours. But we can purchase. We do have that authority.
I mean, if you bought something that was bigger than what you needed. Okay, so now I'm throwing you into a landlord life. Is there a possibility to rent something to help compensate? I mean, what is that total, the numbers that you had given for each different project? What is that annually that's being paid out?
We're probably paying 250,000 right now, and it will probably go to about 400 with the new space.
Times 5 to 10.
Yeah, it's a 4 million or so commitment for 10 years. Yep.
As Lee knows, he gave a chance for some of us officers to hear the presentation. And so I had an opportunity to make observations, comments in, but I'm not an expert in this area, but when all was said and done, I tended to concur that the space offered here and dealing with this opportunity here, particularly the outside pavilion and things there, to me, were all advantages in staying here. So those were just my comments. I didn't want others to think that I didn't have any interest by the fact that I've already commented on this.
Yes, sir.
I would support the executive committee appointing the officers to assist Lee in negotiating the final contract.
Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Bedford said the outdoor space available at Tri Properties supports the earlier work to focus on staff mental health. Thank you, ma'am. So I'll be back in November for another update, and then that's when we'll probably ask the board to grant authority to the officers for the final decision. So,
And in between, if you have thoughts.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, and please reach out. Let me know what you think. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I will make my chair's report very brief. And just sharing that there were two things. One being that, registration closed on Friday. That minding our minds. I think it's gonna be a great regional summit, so I hope to see many or most of you there. Or is it virtual? Just all in person, okay. And I really wanted to just, there was just I had a chance to sit in for the Triangle Trends Report. And I know we didn't really talk about it tonight, but I do want to say that it's a really good resource if you haven't seen it already. Just the report in itself gave a lot of kind of information on where we are as a triangle. And I think it'll be useful for your staff. So I want to encourage you to take a look at it, share it as much as possible. And I think that's pretty much all I have. And yeah, that is all.
Okay.
So. And we're just going to around the region. As I've already stated, I think the regional summit will focus on mental health and burnout and well-being in our local governments. How have your local governments and how do you plan to promote employee well-being and support in your organizations? So if anyone has examples or resources they'd like to share, I can start. Well, we'll throw it over to Carrie and Jennifer.
Okay, all right. I'll just mention one program that we just implemented, which is flexible allowance. I think that's a loose term for our employees, and they are allowed to, it's like a la carte, and they can select something from there, and it could be time off, or it could be in like a little bonus salary. It can be camp for their kids. There's a lot of different things on this menu, but it allows them to meet the needs of their family or themselves as an individual, but with flexibility. So it's not like we're saying, hey, everybody gets this one thing, and some people are going, oh, I don't even need that, or I don't want that. So that's one thing that we're doing in our community to try to promote well-being and happy employees.
That's a really good idea. And I'm looking to Chantel, if there are any hands up. I can't see the.
Let's see.
I think someone can raise you.
Oh, yes. Commissioner Evans.
Commissioner.
Hi,
Evans.
I just wanted to say that Wake County, we just approved for all our employees earlier this month, 2 additional days of leave a year that we're just calling wellness leave. In addition to, their other paid time off, and just when people feel that they need to have just some time off for mental health or other reasons. And so we've just added 2 days to our package that we're just calling wellness days.
And if there's anyone else around the region? Don? Winston?
Chantel gave me a gift box to deliver to Mark Wilson. And Butch, if you're still with us, I'll get with you we'll deliver it to Mark. I actually saw Mark 2 weeks ago. He actually came to Princeton to see me.
Nice.
So he is somewhat mobile, but his voice is strong and he is optimistic. So he's great. The forum met the 1st of October in Manio, and Joe McKinney was our speaker from NATO. And so ARP programs and lobbying Congress, there are a lot of things on the national level that we're just glad to have it in place. And Elena and I are going, and some other municipalities in Johnson County are going to do a regional partnership workshop with the Secretary of Agriculture tomorrow in Wilson County. Actually, Elm City, but so a lot going on.
It's great. Any others?
I'll go. This is Brett Gann from Apex. It may kind of sound boring, but Apex did a big reorg of all our departments, and it's notable in this case because there was a lot of employee outreach about their duties and how busy they were and how effective they felt in their jobs. And my impression of it was very much a employee-centric reorg in a way that I think will hopefully align everybody's duties much more effectively and have their management be much more responsive to what's going on. So we'll see how it turns out. It's just going on right now, but I'm really excited about it.
Well, I would just mention, as you already heard, if you're a government entity in Wake County, you have to be sensitive to what other municipalities are doing. Otherwise, you will soon be left behind. So we ask our HR department to kind of look at some ways we could recognize and assist our employees in this environment. And I don't have a list of all the things, but some of the things that have been mentioned here, we've implemented a retention bonus that will be applied over a period of time. We also, I think, have added more flexibility to leave time, particularly as it relates to personal leave for like sickness or maybe even death in the family, those kinds of things. I think that was covered by sick leave before, so we're going to add something to that as well. And then I think we're implementing what's called a floating holiday. That's a holiday of the employees choosing whenever they like to do that, not around a regular holiday. I was reminded that many times the holidays, the federal holidays that we take are on a Monday, and many times we're having either a council meeting on the next day after that. And so employees get a day off and then they have to rush back in and get ready for a council meeting. So giving them some more flexibility and taking a leave day here and there are just a couple of ideas. We're probably going to look at some more, but those are some of the things we're doing right now anyway.
And if there aren't any others, I would add, I think, I'm not sure if everyone's doing this already, but I know it was interesting to see the teledoc available through like EAP, so you don't necessarily have to go in person.
Yeah.
So if you're, trying to figure out that timing and everything, making sure to have not just a doctor available, but also like the mental health supports available virtually. Make that available for our employees. If there's nothing else, we might be ending quite early.
You'll get no complaints.
There's any other business? If not, I'm gonna call for adjournment at 7:38. Yeah.
Very good, yeah.
Adjourn.
We need a motion.
Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
It'd take long.
All right.
Take a vote.
Roll call votes, once we've had one, can we just ask the people who are.
Okay.
Rather than have to go through.
Yeah, do a voice vote.
And I guess there's no, usually it's no.
By the legislature.